Hey there guys, it's me Malorian and it's time for another Malorian Weekly, and in this one we're going to be doing a caster review on Rahera. She is the newest mercenary caster on the block, and yet you don't see her anywhere. Now the reason why I want to do this caster review is because one, I think there's a lot of potential there that people should be looking at, and two, she'll be in my next battle report, so it might help if you actually know how she actually works. So we're going to jump into that and then kind of like talk about what she is, some of the tricks, and kind of go from there. Alright, so starting off with Captain Rahera, Terror of the Wailing Sea. She is a mercenary privateer shard warcaster. So those shard things are kind of like the it's kind of more, you see more of the crick stuff, like the Dirge Seers and stuff like that. But there is a new pirate unit that came out as well that we'll talk about in a little while. She is Speed 7, which is really great. Strength 7, Mat 7, Rat 5, Defense 16, Armor 15, so above the curve, that's nice. And then Command 9, which I don't think really actually matters right now. She is Parry, she has Pathfinder, she's tough. So some great things there. She has 3 weapons. First one is a hand cannon, so a range 12, POW 12. But then she also has 2 melee weapons. The first one is just a blood axe. They're nice and simple, like cleaver type things. It is magical, range 1, POW 13. Whereas the other one is a bone cleaver, and it is a range 1, POW 13 magical. So basically just 2 attacks, yeah. Okay, nothing really fancy there, but it works. She has 16 boxes and 28 warjack points. Now, when we get to her actual rules and her special rules here, the first one's going to be acrobatics. So she can go charging through models, no problem, as long as she doesn't end her movement on them. So with Parry, that means that she is just going wherever you want. And talking about going wherever you want, she also has sprint. So at the end of an activation, which is destroyed or removed from play one or more enemy models with a melee attack, it can make a full advance. So charging in 10, sprinting away 7. This model moves around. Like, this is one where before I really played with, I was like, oh, okay, I guess you could do neat stuff if you want to die. But as long as you're pretty sure you can kill things with those like 2 PAL 13 attacks, it's kind of like Abby 2, where you want to get in there and be able to pick on that one thing and then move into everything else. But we'll talk about that. Talking about sprint, she has leadership for privateer and shard, while in its command rates, oh, there you go, the command 9 does matter. Friendly privateer and shard models gain sprint. So I don't know how much this one will come up, but it could definitely be interesting. Also, she has Gang Fighter. So when making a melee attack targeting an enemy model in melee range of another friendly faction warrior model, it gets +2 to its attack and damage rolls. So where it was Mat 7, POW 13, it becomes Mat 9, POW 15. So all of a sudden, a lot more dangerous. So something to really think about there. Another big thing, because of one of her weaknesses we'll be talking about later, is Blood Weaver. So when this model destroys one or more enemy models with a melee attack, immediately after the attack is resolved, this model can cast a spell costing 3 or less without spending focus. So it really is incentivizing you to get in there and kill things. I mean, for some of these other ones where it's like, okay, sure, you could be going around being dodgy, and there's not really a lot of benefit though, unless you want to risk dying. When it comes to Rahera, you really want to be doing these things. You want to get in there, you want to kill stuff to get off this free spell, because we're going to get to her spells now, and she has some really good ones. So the first one is going to be Black Spot. So Black Spot is a cost 3, range 8, upkeep, and it's an offensive spell. And what it does is that target enemy warrior model unit suffers -2 defense, and when a friendly faction model destroys one or more affected models with a basic melee or ranged attack during its combat action, immediately after the attack is resolved, it can make one additional melee or ranged attack. Attacks gained from Black Spot cannot generate additional attacks from Black Spot. So this can be huge. Now, paying 3 is quite a bit, but making it so that a whole unit is -2 defense, and whenever something kills it, it gets another attack, can be massive. So we're going to get to this a little bit in the end, but just know that this is a huge resource that will be taking a lot of resources, but it can be explosive if you actually pull it off correctly. The next spell is going to be Bleed. It is a cost 2, range 8, POW 10 offensive spell, and when it damages a living enemy model, this model can remove D3 damage points. Okay, sure. I don't think you're ever really going to cast this, but it might come up. So, sure, it's on the card. All right, Escort. This is a cost 2 self range control upkeep, and Warjacks in the spellcaster's battle group beginning their activation in its control range gain +2 movement when activating as part of normal movement, and the spellcaster gets +2 armor while one or more of the jacks in his battle group are within 3 inches of it. So again, we talked about how its regular stats for hitting things with the axes are going to be going higher than what it shows. The defensive stats will as well, because even though she's a 16-15, which is above that they should add up to 30 curve, she's really a 16-17 when you have the spell off, which you probably really want to have off. So she's pretty tough to deal with. All right, she also has Manifest Destiny, and that's another cost 3 self-control, just for the turn though. And while in the spellcaster's control range, models in his battle group gain an additional die on melee attack and damage rolls. Discard the lowest die for each roll, and it'll last for 1 round. So this is a crazy good spell. I start off this game playing Legion, playing Epic Thagrosh, and I know the damage that Manifest Destiny can do. That it's hard to understand. Basically, just imagine that all your battle group gets +2 to hit and +2 damage, because that's basically how it really works out. She also has Rough Seas. This is another cost 3 self-control, lasts for the round, and when a friendly model is targeted by a range attack while in the spellcaster's control range, the attack suffers -3 range. The Rough Seas last for 1 round. So she has a lot of stuff going on here. She can reduce the range coming in, and she has lots of stuff going on here to be helping out your jacks, where she's making them faster, Manifest Destiny. She has the black spot to be just dominating, just destroying stuff. But one stat that we didn't talk about is that she's focus 6. So she has a lot of things on here that if she was focus 9, well, she would just be busted. The problem is that she is focus 6, meaning you can only do so many things. So there's still more things to talk about here, because we haven't got to her feat yet, which is, I think, the most powerful thing about her. But just know that even though there's a lot of amazing things on here, you have to pick and choose, because there's only so many things you can do. And that's why that Bloodweaver ability is so critical, because getting that 3 free spell is massive, because they're all so good. Whether you're going to go in there and use that to get a Manifest Destiny or a Black Spot or whatever you need to have off, that focus efficiency is massive for her. Now, let's talk about the feat, which is Bloodletting. Now, Bloodletting is, in Rahera's battle group currently in her control range, and friendly living warrior models currently in her control range can immediately make 1 basic melee or range attack. These attacks must target enemy models currently in Rahera's control range. Now, this is really powerful. I hope people are understanding how good that feat is. Now, what that really is if we're looking at things like Sloan, it's like, hey, all of you get an extra attack. It's the exact same thing, except it can be whatever you want. It can be melee, it can be ranged. So it really is a lot more like Haley one, where it's like, hey, look, all of you get an extra thing, go off and do it, except even more flexible, because if you are something like that, where it's like, okay, I can do either melee or range, but it either has to be double ranged or double melee, because once I lock that in for my activation, that's what I have to do. However, because this one's happening out of activation, she comes in, she says feat, and everything around her is making that free attack. it can be whatever you want. So you can be like, okay, we're not in combat right now. We're going to go and pop this feat. Everybody shoot. Now we're going to charge in and do even more damage. Or maybe it's something where, like with that sprint, you're charging in, doing damage, sprinting in deeper, popping feat, killing off the next rank. It's just a lot of power. Now there is the downside, though, that whereas with Sloan and with Haley 1, only your friendly models had to be in the control range. For this one here, the enemy models have to be in control range. And that's the real danger here. And that's, again, the real thing that's forcing you to get Rahera up there and inside. But again, one of the things to keep in mind here is that she doesn't have to stay there. So you can set up these things where she charges through the lines, kills something with her Mat 9 POW 15 attacks, Bloodweaver off a spell, pop her feet while she's up in the front lines, everything's attacking, everything's doing crazy damage, and then she sprints away for everything then to go and do its normal thing. I think the hardest thing to deal with her is just the fact of the timing and when are you supposed to actually be doing this. And I found that when I actually was playing her, man, trying on the turn that wanted to be my feet turn, it took a lot of mental effort to be like, wow, I want everything to be exactly where you want it. Because with other things, one of the things where it's more flexible with them is that Sloan can just say feet and then do her thing and walk away, and then your hunters go and do their things or activations. Everything has to be aligned so you can pop feet, boom, and then be able to get away. So I think because of this, you really want to have a list with guns, because if you just go in and you're all just like punch the face, really, if you're not in base-to-base contact, you're really missing out. And if possible, it'd be really good if you have both, right? If you have someone that has a decent melee attack and a decent range gun, that's pretty good. Now, one of the interactions that I missed at first, I want to make sure that nobody misses as well, is that Black Spot does not work with the feet attack. So if she charges in there and goes, yeah, 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 Black Spot over there, well, that means that if during those feet attacks they attack, since it's not happening during their activation, during their combat action, they're not generating extra attacks. So that's still okay. I mean, you can get your free attack there, then they can attack them again and get a free Black Spot attack. So I mean, like 3 attacks per model, that's a pretty good, but I mean, just some things to keep in mind. Now, I think one of the things that we really have to talk about here is also just the fact that a big focus is going to be that focus efficiency. You really either have to be in something where you have a lot of things that can empower, like if you're in Talion and you can go there and you can be empowering with all your little monkeys all over the place, or if you're in irregulars or something with Silas, you get a free upkeep, and also just the fact that you can get the whole Silas thing where you get an extra dice to try and pull your spell off, so you don't maybe not have to boost. You know, that's a really big thing. Every little spot here where you can try and save that stuff is massive. Now, there is a little bit of a mix here where she has a lot of stuff that really helps Jax and stuff that's really good for infantry, and she kind of wants to do both. So what I kind of found is that I want to have, again, Jax that are good with range and melee. For me, actually, Mariners are the best thing for her, because they can stay back, they can fire her guns over and over again, and then when it comes to fight, well, when you got something with Escort, with Thresher, with Manifest Destiny, they can get in there and they can clean up lots of the world. When it comes to infantry, a lot of people look at the Shard Pirates. They have spray guns, and they're only Rat 5, but I mean, if you black spot something, they can, you know, go in there and really do a lot of damage and like do a spray, do another spray. You can be doing those things. Again, like she's also in Crick, so there's a lot of other stuff you can do there. I'm more of a mercenary guy, but like, I mean, some of the things I found really good were things like Idrians, right? Idrians can do a lot of damage in melee and with their guns, and especially when you're praying something. If you have something that's a prey and black spotted, oh, it's just going to get destroyed. So I think that's really what you really want to do. You want to have a battle group that doesn't need a lot of focus. And to me, that's Mariners, which normally you don't need to allocate any focus for their shooting. And when they're doing Threshers, that's usually good enough. And then when it comes to your infantry that you want to take along with them, you really want them all to be having guns and good melees so you can get off that. It just makes that feat so much easier, right? Makes it a lot more easier. You can go in and pop it and know that everybody can do something. And also, because of the way that works, this is not going to be an alpha type feat. I mean, maybe it could be if your opponent just like walks up and lets you do it. But I think whereas something like Sloan and Haley 1 can be like, okay, I'm going to feat and get you aggressively, because you normally need her to go in and kill something and go back to really set things off. I think normally you're going to need to use your guns to draw them in and then hit them really hard. But I think that, I mean, there's just a lot of stuff on the cards here that people have to really give their thought to. That's being like that feat, that extra attack feat is massive. The spells on her card having, Escort, Manifest Destiny, Rough Seas, so that when you're walking up, a lot of things can't even shoot you because they're reduced range. The black spot, like Bleed is the dead one probably on the card, where it'll be like if you have a desperate trying to do something with your last 2 focus, which he doesn't normally have anyway. But she's just very, very interesting and dynamic on the table, where she's going in, killing type things and then moving away. I mean, if you're on one side trying to get to a zone on the other side, you could be easily moving 17 inches on that turn. So yeah, she gets around and she's a lot of fun. She gets around. Okay, so we're doing a phrasing thing in this one. Anyway, there you have it. That's Rahera. You're going to see her in the battle report coming up. And otherwise, if you have any thoughts on her, especially if you're out there and you're like a Crix expert, I'd love to see you adding more of that down below. But there you have it, and we'll catch you later. Bye.